If you're flipping used bikes and finding that more often than not your potential buyers are walking away empty-handed, then stick around. I've got 5 tips for you today that are going to dramatically increase your sales numbers, and the best part, they're all things that you do before the customer even arrives. My name's Sean Henderson, and this is my channel UpCycles, where we take a look at tips, tricks, and techniques to enhance your bike flipping business. Without further ado, let's jump into today's video. All right, so we're going to jump into my 5 tips to sell bikes effortlessly, and there's a little bit of a catch here, which is these are all things you're actually going to want to do before you even ever get to the sales process. So jumping into the first one, which might seem completely obvious, but you want to fully tune your bikes. Now, it's surprising, and I say that because I know that I've even caught myself doing this, but when you try to skip over things or ignore things that you think the customer won't notice, it always comes back to bite you in the butt. I've been there, and there's nothing more awkward when a customer goes to jump on a bike and test ride it, and oh, what do you know? The thing you thought you could get away with not doing is the very first thing that they notice or that goes wrong. It just never works out in the end, and taking the extra 5, 10, 15 minutes to do it proper is going to save you a lot of trouble. Beyond that, when you have a perfectly working bike to sell, it's going to allow you to be relaxed in the sale. You'll exude confidence, and in turn instills confidence in the buyer, and that just makes the whole selling process go so much more smoothly. Finally, when you are selling awesome fully tuned bicycles, it allows you to build a great reputation, and I can't tell you how many times I've had happy customers send people my way. So first and foremost, you want to make sure your bikes are fully tuned and ready to go. Now up next, you want to clean and detail your bikes. We all know the saying, first impressions are everything, right? Well, you want the experience of the customer to be wow when they first see the bike. Of course, they're buying a used bike. Maybe they don't have super high expectations, but when you put the extra effort into cleaning a bike, it makes a huge difference, right? People are still spending their hard-earned money, and they want to feel good about what they're buying. So when you go through the effort to clean and detail a bike, it just makes them more stoked and more happy with their purchase. You can do things like clean the surface rust, remove grease, shine the tires. You do that, it can really make a dramatic difference and make the bike look new again. So I would say spend the extra 15 minutes. Sometimes it's a bit longer, but you might find that you actually get an extra 10 to 25% in your asking price just by doing that. It's really remarkable how a good clean can drive up the value of a used bike. So going from tuned to cleaned, what's next? Well, you got to test ride your bikes. Now, this is just something you can't avoid, okay? Never ever sell a bike that you haven't test ridden. And I'll tell you why, is because a million times over I've had an experience where a bike feels perfectly fine in the repair stand. You think, finally it's done, it's ready to go. Guess what? You jump on it, the brakes are squealing, the headset's loose, whatever it is. You have to test ride your bikes. It's a huge safety concern also, but you just want to avoid any things that you could have taken care of, and you don't want the customer to be finding it out when they're test riding. As I mentioned, brake squeal is a great example of this, okay? The brakes work fine in the stand. You don't test ride the bike. Guess what? Customer jumps on. There's nothing more embarrassing when the brakes are just howling, okay? It's a super easy fix with towing in the pads, but if you don't have the tools right on you, it can totally botch your sale, and it just slows down the process and looks bad on you. So test ride your bikes, make sure they're safe, make sure they're ready to go. I've listed a few things, checking that it's shifting under load, the ergonomics, the levers, are they at a good angle with your arms? The seat, make sure it's not going up your butt or you're sliding off the front. Tire pressure, and of course, like I mentioned, headset tightness. These are things that you don't always catch in the stand, but you'll definitely be able to see once you actually get on and ride the bike. So we've tuned it, we've cleaned it, we've test ridden it, and we know we're good. What's next? Well, when you're out on the test ride, that's a great time to take photos. Now, when I say good photos or great photos, it doesn't have to be professional, okay? Your standard smartphone will be more than enough to take a good photo. What you want to do is actually just focus on showcasing the features of the bike. And again, this doesn't have to be super complicated, but the best way to do that is to choose a spot that complements the bike, all right? So in the example here, I've got this vintage Bauer, and I have this kind of reddish brown background. I think the blue bike looks awesome against that background. Now, if I had another bike that was also kind of brown, probably wouldn't be the case, right? So choose a background that complements it. Hopefully, wherever you're working, you can kind of have 1, 2, maybe 3 spots. You shouldn't really need more than that will complement the various colors of bikes you're selling. Another tip, which you can kind of see in this, is that you want to have diffuse light, meaning don't shoot it in like bright full-on sunlight. It often blows out the colors and doesn't actually make the bike look good. So if you can go in kind of a not dark but shady area, it actually usually better represents the colors of the bike than if it was in the direct sunlight. As far as the actual photos that you want to take, I shoot my main one from the drivetrain side looking on, just straight on from the side. And then yeah, like this bike, for example, it had a really cool badge on the front fender, and the chain guard was super cool. Just showcase the features. It doesn't have to be, again, super crazy. Just show what makes the bike cool. And by doing so, you'll allow a potential buyer to get a clear idea of what you're selling, and it'll let them know, is this bike right for me or not? So you've tuned it, you've cleaned it, you've test ridden it, you've got good photos. What's my last tip? Write good ads. Again, this may seem super obvious, and in fact, all of these things are, but it's amazing what people will miss or not think about. So when it comes to writing your ads, all you want to do is clearly communicate anything a buyer would want to know about the bike. Size, condition, the speeds, brakes, accessories, and that it's been fully serviced. Now, what I provided here is an example of a bike that I listed, and this is kind of my go-to format. So for the title, I put the brand BBF, the model was a Lily or Lil, the speed, 3-speed woman city bike. Okay, so as far as a title, I think those are like great things to consider. Also, if the bike is super clean, I did the like new condition. This is just a bit of an attention grabber. You don't always need to do this, but when I have a super clean bike, I like to do something like that. Going into the body of the ad, again, I repeat what it is. Frame size, super important. And just say what size of that would fit. You'll know once you start to work on a few bikes what an average frame size translates to a person's height. Put that in. That helps someone huge. The amount of times that I've had someone show up before I did this where I maybe said the frame size but didn't say what height of person it will fit. You want to spell it out for people. It saves you time, it saves them time. Just do that. I mentioned the wheel size. The tires are like new. It's a 3-speed Shimano Nexus hub with a grip shift. Some people don't like grip shift or they're not comfortable with certain styles. There's a front hand brake and a rear coaster brake. And then it has a dynamo hub that powers the front and rear lights. And then I just included some accessories. That's kind of obvious from the photos, but fenders, rear rack, kickstand, bell. These are things that, if they weren't included in the bike, they would have to go spend money on. So it's definitely worth including. And finally, what I always do is at the end, I put the same sentence every single time. The bike has been fully cleaned, tuned up, and is ready to ride. Basically, if you look at this format as a whole, you're introducing it in the title, what it is, you're letting them know everything that they possibly could need to know in the body of it, and then you wrap it up by assuring them that the bike is clean, tuned up, and ready to ride. It pretty much says everything. When you do this, you are going to not only answer all their questions, but you're going to qualify your customer, okay? The biggest thing in terms of having a good closing rate for when people come to visit you is qualifying your customer, okay? You want to make sure that the people who show up, who you book appointments with, are really knowing what they want and that you have what they want, essentially. So this is huge. Write good ads. This format has worked for me hundreds of times. I would suggest copying it. Anyone can do what they want, but this works for me. So in conclusion, if you do these 5 things, I guarantee it will dramatically increase your conversion rate, okay? I would estimate my lifetime conversion rate around 85%, and I know that sounds crazy high, but the thing is, you have to do all these things to get those types of numbers. And, let's look at why I know that is the case for me, but why it's possible, okay? So your bikes are fully tuned and working perfectly. This is like the biggest thing, right? People want a bike that they're not going to have to turn around and take to a shop. It's going to work perfectly. They're cleaned and detailed, and they have this incredible first impression. Okay, so the bike works great and it looks amazing. Thirdly, I've test rode them and I've made adjustments. So I know that the first time the person jumps on that bike is going to feel exactly like it's meant to. Fourth, I took great photos so they knew exactly what they were looking at. And finally, I provided all the information in the ad that they could ever want to know. So whether they needed to know the speeds, the type of brakes, the size, what kind of height, all those things, they're going to know ahead of time, and they can determine before they contact you to book a viewing if it's right for them. So what's the result you get from this? People know exactly what they're coming to see, and more often than not, they leave with the bike. I can't say enough. And like I said, these are all things that you want to do before the sale, okay? Doing this stuff is going to save you so much time in terms of weeding out people who aren't right for the bikes, and it's just going to keep you from embarrassing moments when someone comes to buy a bike and you have missed a repair or something like that. So in conclusion, I hope this helped you guys, and I look forward to presenting you with more information on how you can enhance your bike flipping business. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.